Alright, y'all, welcome back. It is Thursday. We are doing our photography lives right now. And tonight we're focusing on videography. Alright. And as you guys know, I have turn this over. I have 4 different sessions that I have per week now when it comes to these lives. And the first one starts with the photography portion. Second is videography, which is tonight. Next Thursday, we're going to be doing marketing or editing. And then the Thursday after that will be marketing. So that's to give you guys the layout of how you can start your content with creating pictures, taking pictures, creating videos as content of all sorts, and then going into the editing portion. So that is being able to understand how to edit your pictures for posting, how to edit your video for sharing, and creating those content pieces for social media, and then ultimately how to market them on social media. So if you are watching me on YouTube, you know that you are seeing me live right now on YouTube, and I also have my Facebook page, which is also connected to my YouTube. So you'll be able to see that going back and forth and different angles of what you can see me doing, right? And then I also have my camera, which I will go into in-depth settings, understanding ultimately how I do my recordings. I know everybody does things a little differently, but there is some type of a basic roadmap, so that way you can at least get something that looks really good when you are filming, ultimately, when you're filming. And I'm going through all that with you, because I just did a show about a week ago, and another show before that, and I got a show coming up next week, and then an event coming up the weekend after that. So it's been pretty busy, and I'm using my camera for every single one, and using my phone for the most part for the behind the scenes. Of course, if I have somebody with me, which is either my partner or my assistant, who will also have with some behind the scenes footage, and then I'm gonna give you guys the insight on how to do all that. All right, so I am gonna show you guys my setup in the meantime. As you guys, for the most part, can usually tell, my setup is usually pretty much the same, right? So I have my softbox here, okay, which is this right here. And that basically just has my continuous light in it, my little light bulb, right? And for those on YouTube who can't really see it good enough, this is the softbox, okay? And then I have it with my, I always want to make sure I put this bulb information in the video, in the description, but I always forget. But either way, this light right here, it can change up to different types of settings. So of course you have your warm, you got your cold, and you got your white. All right, and depending on what you're looking at me from, you can say one is like really bright compared to the others. So if I step back, of course you see it'll be much softer. This goes back to a post that I made recently on Instagram, basically saying you can create and manipulate light with distance. So this will be an idea, right? So obviously, if you're looking at me through YouTube and I'm right in front of the light, it looks very bright. Even on some on Facebook as well, but my phone can adjust it automatically. I have to adjust it for this particular camera. So if I move back, of course, I look a little darker on both sides, right? But I'm looking more in tune and aligned when it comes to YouTube. So some things and tidbits to really look out for, especially if you're doing videography. So I'll push this back here. Okay, and then of course on this same device, it is a remote that is for my light bulb here. Of course I can lower that. I can put it on a warm if that's what I want, and ultimately that is what I want. So I'll bring that down to there so that I can really flow with the lighting ultimately, right? So that's my key light, right? So you see it's right in the corner. I never really have it right in front of me. It's more flattering off to the side because it creates some shadows on the other side that is not lit up. Also tips to understand when it comes to filming videos, okay? And same when it comes to pictures, but ultimately if you're filming video, I feel like to some extent it's a little easier just because you can see up front what you're working with. Whereas with pictures, you have to, if you're using a strobe or a flash or a speed light, you have to kind of play around with that speed light because that's going to give you a different type of tone when it comes to the brightness of your images, right? Does that make sense? So now, here is my secondary light, which is not really secondary, but it's more like an accent light. So it would be my LED strobe tube light, okay? Now, I usually like putting this in here because it does give me the extra color. It doesn't have to be, but now I'm so accustomed to having color in my videos, I keep it, okay? And I love it because without it, of course, I can turn it off. And it'd be fine as is, but it's like it's missing something, right? And that's just me. It's missing something, right? So now, because of that, I do keep it on and I utilize it, right? It can be blue, it can be any color, but this is the color I'm using with tonight, okay? Then I'm going to show you my practical light, okay? I just moved, for people that are looking at me through YouTube, I just moved my microphone away because it was blocking my practical light. Now, I've mentioned about this before in one of my cinematic lighting videos, or the only cinematic lighting video I have so far. So I'm going to show you how it's lit up. This light here is not actually lit up, okay? This is one of my favorite types of lighting setups, and only because it is an illusion. I found this out watching somebody's YouTube video a few weeks back, probably a month, and how they were utilizing practical lighting and not really using the actual light source. Like they weren't actually lighting the lamp, right? And it made me really snap until like realizing like every time now I see it in movies, when they are lit up that way, is because they are set up to be lit that way, but not really turned on. Does that make sense? If not, don't worry. I'm about to show you exactly what I mean. Okay? So first and foremost, let's go ahead and just get right to this lamp. So if I'm here, all right, I'm on top of the lamp right now, and say I decide I turn it off. You know, the lamp is off, right? Now, what I just took off from on top of this lamp is this light right here, okay? This LED lamp light bulb right here. Really simple. This is really cheap, like $12 on Amazon. And of course, if I cut it on, it turns on. It can light my hand, obviously. And you can see it really, obviously, it is a light source. But the funny thing is, if I turn the actual lamp on, it lights up the whole back room. It's not a bad thing, but it doesn't make it to where I can actually utilize it in a way that is, I would say beneficial, but ultimately beneficial in the sense of the mood that I'm trying to set. Because if I'm trying to set a mood right here, even with this blue light, it's not going to get very far, right? Because this light right here has filled up my whole backspace. Like the whole background is just lit. So for me to eliminate that, this is where the illusion comes into place. That will be me having this light right here turned on, and you can place it however works best for you as long as it's not being seen, but I place it on top just because it is harder to really recognize that I have it on top of my lamp, okay? So I'll turn it off. That's off. Turn this on. Now this is on, all right? And then I'll put it right on top. And then luckily, that can actually fit on top of my lamp. And now it keeps it contained, okay? So that's something to definitely consider and think about when it comes to you lighting a particular area for a particular scene. So now my light sources are sharing the space versus one taking over the whole entire room because I didn't light it properly, okay? Like some really cool things to really look at when it comes to understanding how to really utilize your lighting. Like for me, I am very ecstatic because I have learned, specifically by doing these types of lives, I have learned over time what to light, what effect to get ultimately to give me the desired mood or emotion in a particular scene, right? And I'm still learning. To this day, I'm still learning, still looking at other professionals. So I'm still in that sense of being a student, but I also am appreciative of how much I've learned so far. All right. So now that I've gone over the basics of the lighting of your scene, of your area for your video, now we can get right into going over some settings that I have had when it comes to me filming a show. Okay. So recently I've had two shows pretty much back to back. I feel like they were back to back. It might have been a week in between, but either way they were back to back, right? So, in both shows I filmed with my gimbal. Now I've showed you guys my gimbal before in another video, so I'll show you again. And this, of course, will be my gimbal, and I'm not setting it up this time, right? But what I will do is I will go over, of course, some of the steps and settings that I had to adjust ultimately for this particular gimbal, okay? So, for example, now keep in mind, this gimbal is not unlocked. Like, there are a lot of knobs in here to unlock the gimbal, and I have them all locked currently because of the purpose of this video. But ultimately, because I do want you guys to see what it is that I'm doing, I am going to take a couple of minutes to set it up to give you guys the full experience, set it up, and then talk about the settings, and then show you guys the camera and the behind the scenes side of it, so you guys can see the settings that I have for the camera and how I had things filmed for these two shows. All right, so we'll get to doing that right now. I'll bring a chair here. Here is the base of my gimbal. Then I'm going to connect it right here. Again, I have the other video that also teaches this. I will attach it to this video. Alright, so I'll place it right here. This is supposed to be my flat surface. Then I'm going to go by and I'm going to go around all these knobs. And I'll show you what I mean when I say these knobs. So these knobs right here, right? And there's another one down here at the bottom. And there's another one right here on this side. Okay? And all of those, show you guys right here as well. This knob right here. Okay? Okay, cool. And then this knob right here. And then I have another one on this side. Okay? And then, of course, I do also have this. I'm going to show you. Once I unlock these, I'm going to show you the other one. I unlock all of them. And when I unlock them all, it moves like this, pretty freely. Alright? Pretty freely. Same thing here. Now, for anybody who probably has like the newer types of gimbals, you might be like, that is not the gimbal that I got. And you're right, because it's not going to be. This one's actually an older one. I probably have had this one for at least a good 2-3 years now. I would like to upgrade, but it's not on my priority list right this second because it is still my trusty gimbal. Keep in mind, even if I upgrade my devices, I'm still going to keep the ones that I've always had because they're the ones that got me to where I'm at, and they still work, right? So it'd be different if they were just like starting to fall apart. But no, I've learned what makes them work. I've learned how to fix them. I've learned how to adjust them when some things don't work like they're supposed to, and I know why. You know what I mean? So compared to me just trying to buy something brand new, I think it's going to be easier when it's like I could just master what I currently have. So, underneath this, you will see this knob right here, right? This is a FeiyuTech, by the way. FeiyuTech AK2000, if I remember correctly. All right? So, see this knob right here. And keep in mind, where my camera is going to go is going to be on this surface. You see this groove? That's where that is also going to attach itself. And I got to find the attachment in my camera bag. So, I'll show on this side, on this angle as well. So here is where my camera is going to be sitting on, right? And this part right here is what I'm going to be using to loosen this up so I can give access. And I'm going to grab my attachment. It's going to go on top of this so that my camera can sit on. Now, some of this is a little redundant because, again, I've talked to you guys about this before, but I have no problem showing you again, just in case you missed the first time. So here's the attachment that is going to go on the gimbal. That is what actually attaches to my camera to sit on the gimbal properly. Like so. Okay, and now I'm going to detach my camera from my tripod. And for future reference, I am also going to make sure that I am going to do a revised edition of really all of my lives. just so that way they can be more condensed. They can get rid of the dead space. And I can show you guys examples within the videos, because a lot of these, I want to show you examples, but it's going to take me time to go and find it. So it's one of those things like to avoid spending that time. So I will take off this attachment that was attached to my tripod, which is allowing my tripod to hold it. This right here. Okay, so take that off, and then I'll put this in its place. Just lock that in, as you can see what it looks like. All right, and then just twist. That's what it looks like, and then I just twist it. Keep in mind, the camera is still on, okay? Because I got it connected to the laptop right now. So, I'll do it like this. All right, so now that I have that on there, I can actually go ahead and connect this to my, to this. But before I do that, I'm going to give you guys, because I have to change my lens, and I'm going to tell you why. All right, because I could go ahead and just place it on top of the camera, but it's going to be a whole thing I have to do. But either way, I'm going to tell you why I got to change the lens right now. So, currently at the moment, my camera has a prime lens. If you, of course, you know the prime lens is the one that has the cropped squares, right? So, if you know the kit lens, they're a wider shot, right? I can zoom out. For the most part, they're zoom lenses. For the prime lens, they automatically go into one type of setting or one type of a crop of your screen, and that's all. You just have to move. You have to move up or move back just to be able to really adjust the distance. Okay. So because of that, and this doesn't have anything to do with the fact that it's cropped. It has everything to do with the fact that I have this attachment on my gimbal. All right. So I did cut this off. So this attachment, well, I still gotta. So I went ahead and I loosened up this bottom part that I had mentioned to you guys before. Now that I've loosened it up, I can turn this over. All right, and because I turn this over, it's gonna give me like an X shape, right? Because at first it was like this, and that's how I had it in its resting place. Okay, this is this resting place right here. All right, and then I turned it over because that's where I want my camera to be facing this way. Okay, I'll turn to the side. You guys get a better idea because ultimately my hand's gonna be here, camera's gonna be sitting right here, and this part is gonna be behind. It's gonna be in the back, so it's gonna be where I'm gonna be facing my face. So, as you guys can see on this side, this is gonna be facing me. My camera's gonna be sitting right here, but the lens is also gonna be sitting right on top of this. The prime lens is too short to fit there. That's the only reason why I'm even moving it. Because if it wasn't, and I had a prime lens that was kind of long enough, and I know I can get another zoom lens that can give me a 35 millimeter probably, or 55. And be able to adjust it so it can sit on top of this. But the prime lens doesn't even reach all the way to the end to sit properly. So if I try to move around and have a steady shot, it's gonna jerk regardless. On top of the fact that that lens doesn't have an image stabilizer. It doesn't have an image stabilizer feature on it anyway. So I'm gonna be 2-for-0. So I'm gonna go ahead and lock this in. Keep in mind I haven't collaborated it or calibrated it or anything like that. I just placed it on there. It's pretty much already calibrated. And plus, again, that'll be a different video that I would have to do with you guys. So now I'm going to place this on top. Just like that. I'm going to take this lens cap off. So now my kit lens is actually attached to here. So now I am going to place my camera onto my gimbal. Keep in mind, I always double check that this is screwed in from the bottom of the camera, and then I place it here. Now, because of course of how long it's been since I've had this, there is another screw here. Once I place this into this groove, if you guys can see that, that's where the groove is at, right? Let me actually move this over here a little bit. Alright, so once you see it's placed into this groove, now I have this other knob that needs to be turned. Okay. I know you guys can see that one, but I'm gonna show it here too. So this is knob right here that I also need to turn. Now I have to be careful with that knob. Why? Because if I just tighten it once, it could get loose again. So I always double check it, especially after I've taken a break and I grab it again, and I make sure I tighten it up again, just so that way it stays actually lit. Okay. So once I do that, or stays secure on the camera. So when I do that, now I also make sure that it is sitting on top of this right here, this T shape, right? Make sure that it's sitting on top of that T. So now I can cut on my gimbal, finally. So I lower this part so I can have a better grip on it. Once I do that, then I press this button on the side, right here. I hold it until I see it lit up. Okay, it's lit up, and you see the camera itself. It moved over, it pivoted, right? Because I already had it calibrated again, so it did what it needed to do. Keep in mind there is another setting as well, to where if I were to be prepared to go ahead and film, right, and I just got out of focus, or my lens, I was zooming a lot of up and down because I'm having to keep up with the performers. I can actually come here to realign it, and I can slide over the screen and go to payload. All right, and I can't do it right now because I'm holding it. It has to be on a steady surface, like a flat surface. And then once I get a payload, I hit auto adaptation, and that's going to try to center it, or try to level it, right? And it's going to do like this interesting hum before it gets there. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys his here as well. So you get over here to payload. Okay, and then of course you hit auto adaptation when you're on a flat surface, and then it's gonna do the calibration portion ultimately, right? So I'll try it right now since we're here. I'm gonna place it on this chair. Hit auto adaptation, and what I'll do is I'll actually bring y'all closer so you guys can see. Alright, there we go. And then I'll hit confirm. And it says waiting. Here's a little hum. And that says complete. Once it says complete, I hit complete. And then for the most part, you can see that nothing is really moved. So everything's already calibrated and it's leveled. Right? Now, if you saw one that was way more than the other, more than likely what that means is that there's something that is not connected on there correctly. It's probably still locked. Or there's something that's not calibrated manually enough, and you got to fix it. Okay, so part of me is like, I need to make that into a separate video to go over specifically why the mistakes that you can come across when it comes to the gimbal, just because of what we're doing right now. And I think I will. I think I will, just so you guys can get that different perspective and that breakdown. Okay. So, we are connected, we are calibrated, we are locked in, okay? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to finally cut it on. Okay, and what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to slide out back to the beginning of this menu. All right, now my camera should be on, and it is. I'm waiting for my program to come up so I can do the remote shooting. And I feel like I'm gonna test it out. I feel like it's this one. It should catch what I do filming wise. Let's see. Let me see something. So we're going to flip that like so. All right, so I'm going to switch up right quick so you guys can see what that looks like. Okay, so this is the camera. Okay, keep in mind, of course, what that is showing right now, obviously, is where I'm at, right? What I'm looking at. Okay, but what I really want you guys to see was the settings itself. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to go ahead and take that off, and then I'm going to do something else. I want you guys to see what my settings look like. Where did I put it? All right. So this currently is my latest BTS neck filming rig. Okay. Now it's not the most steadiest thing, but it does what it needs to do, right? And then maybe I have to learn how to utilize it so that way it can be steady when I'm walking, for example. But if I am just filming and capturing something, I can be able to show you guys what that looks like. So in the meantime, I'm going to grab this camera, grab my phone, and I'm going to flip this grip right here, attach it here because it does lock in, so you'll be able to see me. You'll be able to see that's what I'm looking at. All right, so you can see I'm looking at the camera, looking at my laptop, right, looking at my setup, and then of course, if I come to the camera itself, you can see that also coming into play. So now what we'll do is, because I want you guys to see this a lot better, I'm going to turn this light up a little bit. Alright, so first and foremost, what I always want to do is make sure that I am in focus. Okay, so how I'm going to make sure that is the case is I am going to hold down my shutter button halfway. And that's to do the autofocus. Keep in mind, make sure that it is on autofocus. So what that looks like is turn around. So if we see here, right now it's on manual, it's on MF, that's manual focus. Alright, so if I adjust it, autofocus, we locked in. Alright, cool. So now, to retry this out again, then I want to, you'll hear that sound, and then it shows up green. That's how we know we're in focus. Keep in mind there's no light over there, right? So if I really want you to be like, let me cut this light on. Okay? So now we have some light. Still not the brightest, but it's some light, okay? So now we go into our settings. So if you guys can tell, my current settings are, I got 6400. Those on, hold on. Click here. ISO is on auto right now. So we'll do 6400, right? That's like the highest. I believe it's the highest. Auto, of course, will be what that is. 32, if I go down, it's going to drop. All right, so we'll do 64 just to start there, but we're going to really adjust our shutter speed. If we drop the shutter speed, that'll make it even brighter. Okay, now just keeping in mind what that would consist of. If I'm taking pictures, it could make it blurry. Even with some videos, it might make it blurry depending on what I'm doing. If I'm streaming or recording, okay? So that's something to definitely pay attention to. But keep in mind, for me to have it this way, I actually, let me see, I had it it was up to 500 because I was streaming the other day. So that's around what was going on. But for the most part, when I'm recording, I'll have, the lowest I've had this on was probably, and it goes further and further down. That's crazy. Actually, it does do that for the kit lens. It's the prime lens doesn't go that low if you're doing the shutter speed. I may have it, if I'm doing a show, maybe like at 30 for the shutter speed. And keep in mind, it doesn't make it blurry at all. Like, they come in really, really crisp. Only thing, because the only reason I have it that low is so that way the light can come in. And my ISO already be high. So normally, I try to control the lighting in the room like I'm doing right now. So let's make sure I have this light here, the light in the back on, the light in the corner on, just so that way I can control what my settings is going to look like ultimately, right? As much as I can. So then what I'll do is, if that's pretty decent, then what I also do is I will hit this button up top says AV, and then I'll hit this scroll here on the side. It's on top, right in front or right behind my shutter button, and then I will flip it. So the higher I go, the more sharp the image is, but the less light comes in. Of course, the lower I go, the more light comes in, but it'll start giving me that blurry background, right? So, which is not bad, but it's just something that I definitely know will take place. Okay, keep in mind the settings that I had for my show performing or show filming came out really good either way. So it all depends on how you can make it work for your current settings. Okay, so that's just mine at this moment. All right, so let's see. Let me back up a little bit. So you guys can definitely see what that looks like. All right, so this is ultimately what I would be having when I am recording. Now, I am also not always having this with me. I just started using this at the last show, and I only did that for like the BTS of people coming in, for example, right? So I didn't want to just have it to where it was going to be in the way while I'm filming, because it's possible that it might not do like I wanted to. So this is where I'm going to look at other ways to be able to capture how I'm recording while I'm recording without me having to have this big clunky thing over my neck, just for the purpose of making sure I have a smooth experience filming, right? Because I can do this, for example, and keep in mind, it's not bad, right? But there's a lot of things I do I want to be mindful of, because as videographers, we are paying attention to the screens, okay? I can see the performer there, but for me to make sure that it's coming out properly, coming out well lit, I am paying attention to the screen. So if I have two screens in front of me, it could possibly get confusing unless I start getting used to it, right? And of course, I never want to do that when I go to a show and start practicing, trying to get used to it. Then I go ahead and practice on my own. Hence why I do these lives, right? So that way I can practice here without having to worry about messing up while I am filming and somebody pay for their footage and they going to possibly have footage where it's kind of shaky because I can't focus on one of the other screens. Something to consider, okay? So just to give you guys a taste of normally how I film, okay? So normally, especially if it's a pole show, somebody will be here in front of me, right? And I will start low enough, depending on where their angle is at. Sometimes they may start high, okay? And I'll give you guys a little breakdown as well as to my settings on my gimbal while I'm recording, so you guys can get an idea of what that looks like, okay? So I may start here, and then ultimately I'll move up to where they are, and then if I need to turn over, I'll just turn this to this side, and then I'll just shift my hands around the gimbal to the other side. Keep in mind, this is all while this is on, as far as the gimbal is on this setting. Let me bring this down some more. And that is this corner setting right here. The one that's highlighted is the setting that is currently on, okay? And the reason is because, as you can see from the design, it allows this to ultimately stay leveled. Like it stays leveled, okay? Let me break this come in a little more. There we go. So let me show that to you guys one more time in case you couldn't catch it. So this right here helps this footage, this filming stay level, so it's left to right, okay? Now, if I were to switch it over to this one, for example, it's touchscreen, so if I touch it, it'll say pan and tilt, okay? Pan and tilt means I can go up, and it'll move up with me. I can go down, and it'll move down with me, okay? If you can see that angling. But if I were to do, obviously, just this right here, which would be the panning, it would only go left and right, and it will stay in that same level the entire time, right? I can still shift to the left and right, but if I am moving up, it's going to give me that up angle. And that is very beneficial because if I am filming somebody who's possibly, say, pole performing, and they happen to be very high on the pole, I don't want to have issues trying to use this pan portion. So let me go to the pan right quick. So go to the pan, right? And then I'm trying to be like this, try to catch them like this, and my hand's all the way up here, and I'm missing it, right? And keep in mind, when I first started, I was missing them a lot, okay? And it was irritating, and I didn't know why. And it wasn't until I started really playing around with my gimbal even more when I realized what was going on. I had to play around with different types of settings. Now this other one, as you can see, when I click it, it says all follow, right? Now this one, I have not really used to its full extent, but as you can see, it does give this type of angling. Now this would be pretty cool if I had time to play around with it, but my anxiety is too bad to where it makes me feel like it's gonna fall, but it's not. It's actually really secure, but it does give you that, does give that view, right? So let me see if I can show it to you guys on the camera. So let me go back to pan mode, all right? Then we're gonna do this. All right, and then I'm gonna show you exactly what I mean if I go to all follow. So that might be something, again, I may have to play around with it when it comes to music videos, maybe. So I'll bring this down, bring this over. No. Okay, I'll leave that there. I'm looking at everything. Okay. Hold on, still want you guys to see this. All right. Okay, just to give you guys an idea. So we are currently on pan. Now we're going to go to all follow. See that? All follow. So now we're on all follow. This is what's going to happen. Okay. So now say I'm recording, obviously, this rack. Right? So the camera shifts, and I can shift with it. Right? And then, of course, it can go up still, and it can still go down. Right? Still panning in that way. Same thing if I decide to be right here. Right? I can do the same thing. I can tilt it. So the other way, and that will actually give me that look. Now, keep in mind, if we're looking at the video over here, you're probably like, well, it's kind of slow to respond, right? And we can see that. So what I want to do, I can increase my shutter speed. Maybe go to 1/100, right? See if that maybe adjusts something. But then also could be just because it's connected to the camera, to the laptop too, right? But either way, I wanted you guys to see what this ultimately does and how it looks like. So if you were to decide to have something like mine, again, the FeiyuTech AK2000, then you could utilize this, right? Of course, there's others, but again, I don't really mess with those as much. Portrait mode is also pretty cool. I can get into that real quick. Let me go ahead and put this back on. Actually, it is. It's back on pan mode, but you can see it's still a little crooked. So what I could do is I could actually turn this over manually with these buttons right here. And that'll flip it. And if I was like, you know what, that's doing too much, it's not giving me what I really wanted, because I can adjust that, right? And that's what I would do at the beginning. Because I couldn't figure out how to get the camera to show in the way that I wanted to, as far as going up. If I was filming a performer that was climbing the pole, I just would just start moving those buttons. And again, it's not the smoothest thing, but it helps for as a backup. So now let's go ahead and recenter this thing. Here, payload, auto adaption. Keep in mind, this is what it looks like right now. Confirm, it's going to adjust itself. Just like that. And then hit complete. You can see the adjustments that were slightly made to it. Some of them might be a little off, but it's still going to be fine. It's still a lot smoother and leveled than what it was before. Okay, so do I still need this on my neck? Oh yeah, portrait mode. So I'll show you guys portrait mode. So let me see here, because I wish. If let me see, close this. I'm going to try a different type of mode. Alright, so what I'm going to try to see if I can do is utilize the webcam mode, just so you guys can see how I'm actually recording it. Alright, so waiting for that to come in. Click on it, right? Alright, so waiting for that. Alright, so till that does come up. In the meantime, okay, here we go. And I gotta make sure that there's room to be picked up. So it'll be this right here. Here we go. So let's go here while that comes in. So now, the only way to activate portrait mode on this right here, let's see, I'm over here trying to get this set up. Install. Alright, it's gonna take a minute, and that's okay. The only way I know to actually access portrait mode on here is, of course, you would slide over to see portrait mode, but it's not highlighted. It's grayed out. So what I would have to do is I would drop my gimbal down, and now it's highlighted. Okay, so if I'm up here, it's gray. If I drop it down, it's highlighted. And only when it's highlighted can you select it, and it will turn your camera around, right? So now keep in mind, I got some extra weight on here too, so that's the bridge cord kind of messing with it. And then of course it comes out of the portrait mode in that moment, right? But that will give you an idea. And this thing never came up. That's fine. That's fine, I don't need it right now then. Okay. Alright, so this is to be an idea. Now, personally, I don't always use portrait mode just because, so I'm going to unplug this. Okay. So now we're here. So now we're going to try it again. Right? So now this could be the tilting portion, right? That just didn't get aligned. So then what I could do is I could drop it back down. So click this button to turn it back around again. As you see that. Then we're going to come down here. And I'm going to try to realign it now that it's on a flatter surface. Try to payload one more time. Confirm. Wait for that to come in. And then what I can always do is I always like to double check my screws. So I always make sure that they are tight and not going anywhere. Everything is pretty much locked in, because if it wasn't, it wouldn't even have let me do that. Okay. So now we'll try it one more time for the sake of showing. Bring this out. For the sake of showing, okay. Complete. Back around. Now, it's grayed out. It's lit. Press the button. Alright. So this would be where something could be slightly off with it. Alright? Because typically it shouldn't move in this specific way. And even if I were to try to adjust it, right, it's still going to give some slight issue. So what could be taking place right here? It could be a failure of a something might not be aligned just right. So for example, this may need to be moved a certain type of position, so that way the portrait mode could be straight ahead, right? Because that's typically what it would do, right? So that's fine. So if it's gonna do that, I will hit it to remove it, get it off of it. Now we're back here, okay? Now, I'm gonna place you guys off. Now that was a lot, okay? A lot in the sense of we got through a lot of content and explanations of what are the settings that I ultimately used for my last show. Again, I will place it in the video when I do a recap video to show you guys what the last show looked like, okay? I'll show you guys what the lighting was, obviously, and then how I had my settings ultimately set up, because I did take a snapshot of that, and also what the visuals were able to give me. I didn't have this connected to anything else. It was just the camera on top of my gimbal, and it did what it needed to do. So I was ultimately happy with the results, and the people that booked me for it were actually very happy as well. So it gives you an idea, for one, that there are different ways on how to film, right? But ultimately, you're filming for lighting and filming for speed. So if you are having a subject that is moving a lot, you want to make sure that, just like with photography, that you have the right settings to capture them while they're moving, okay? But the thing is, depending on how much your lighting is, that could determine if you have to sacrifice some of that, the speed, in this case, the shutter speed, to make sure that you are really getting the flow and the lighting in properly, okay? Because it's easy to just, where is it at? There you go. Hold up. Okay, here we go. Because it's easy to, what am I getting at? It's easy to kind of forget that you also have to make sure that they are properly lit up. So just like it always, photography and videography is almost the same. The only difference is motion, okay? And even with photography, you can capture motion shots or motion. You can take pictures of while in motion to create a motion clip. That's a whole different topic, right? But nonetheless, when it comes to filming for video, what I notice is that I have to pay attention to the lighting first, okay? If I have my own lighting and I add on to it, typically it's gonna be bright enough, right? Now, I never had a whole lot of issues though when it comes to me having my shutter speed at 30 shutters, 1/30, right? Just because of the fact that it's not giving me a motion blur, it's not making them look really fuzzy, nothing like that, right? But depending on what you are shooting for, say for example, obviously if I'm doing this, you can see a little bit of motion blur, right? Just a little bit. But if you're looking at it from this camera, my webcam, you can see more motion blur. Whereas on my phone, not as much, just because of the type of device that it is. Same thing with this one, right? So if I had a device that probably wasn't the best, because this is a 1080p, and it does really good HD shots, so this could also be a reason why it did really, really good. Whereas if I had a 720, it might be very grainy, and not only grainy, but very poor when it comes to the motion blur, right? So this has been my trusty device when it comes to me recording for pole shows, that shows, events even, and I always have great footage that comes out of it. The only time that I ever have to worry about high grain is when the lighting is not the best. I'm having to work with what I have. Typically, and I've noticed in some cases, if I have a show that I'm filming and it's all red light is usually not my camera's best friend. Pretty sure a lot of videographers will also agree with that. Like straight up this red light all the way through is cool if you're doing it on your phone, right? But if you're shooting from your camera, your DSLR, mirrorless, the settings have to be adjusted to fit it, right? Now, unless, of course, you have like a 4K camera and above, and maybe those settings might be able to allow you to capture more high-def image and maybe much less grain, or your ISO can go higher than 6400 to where you can catch the whole thing without having any issues when it comes to the grain. Even though, as we know, the higher the ISO, the higher the grain possibility, right? So there's a couple of those things to factor in. Also, another color that I don't really care for when I'm filming is bright pink. I hate it. If you're just filming and it's only bright pink, it's the most irritating thing. The beautiful thing about what I had in my last show, the very last show that I filmed, was that we had a performer who was all in all bright pink. And typically, each performer has their own set of colors that they want to perform in when it comes to their lighting, right? So some of them, as you guys see, I got blue, right? Somebody say, oh, I want blue lights. So they'll put blue lights for them. Somebody say, I want red lights. So they'll put red lights for them. So me, as a videographer, granted, I wish I could just be able to provide and just do my own lighting every time, but there's a certain type of flow that these performers have. So I make sure that I adjust accordingly. So with that being stated, luckily the person who was coordinating the event was like, she seen my camera and she was like, hey, do you want me to add some white lights to it, you know, or a different kind of color to it? And she would actually ask for that feedback. Whereas other people, I make it work, right? So, because she asked, I was like, yeah, please add it. Because again, I'm not trying to ruin somebody's set because they didn't ask for white or another color. They just wanted their straight red, right? So all I can do is just shoot as such. But since she saw it, she was like, yo, should I add another color? Like, yeah, please, like, add a white. Like, mark her up with a white. If you're going to do all red or all pink, I don't mind that being your background color, but it's something about if you're not lit up in that moment, you could also blend in, especially depending on what you're wearing, too. So it's coloring and understanding how that color reflects with the lighting so that you can be the one that pops out, right? So that way you're not blending it into the background. But again, some people like that effect. So it all depends on the client and what they're going for ultimately. Because if they would have been like, yo, I don't want no other color but this one, I can't say nothing. I'm like, all right, cool, we're going to rock with it. We're going to make it work because they know, for the most part, they probably already know what it's going to look like and they're cool with it because that's the effect that they're going for. But ideally, if I had the choice, I would always highlight the performer. Either add another color to give them that contrast or give them a white spotlight so that way they can be separated from the overall one type of color that makes them blend in. But again, that is my take on that. All right, so that is pretty much all I got for you guys for today. I have, again, a couple of shows that's coming up. Next week, we are going to be talking about editing. So what I probably will do is I'll edit one of my shows that I probably will have or have had, or just go through like a video that I already created, because I have a few videos that I've created when I've edited some of my poll shows. And I will show you guys what that looks like, or I'll grab an old video. Either way, I'm going to show you guys that process, what that ultimately looks like, and we can go into that more in depth and answer any questions you guys may also have for me, okay? So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys so much. When it comes to checking out my lives, whether they are during the session or after the session, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. I promise you I'm doing so much better. We're trying to give you guys a good recap, an edited recap, so it's not just the full hour and you got 20 minutes sporadically throughout the whole thing where it's me trying to figure out what I'm trying to adjust and show you guys on the screen. But the fact that I was able to even show my Facebook Live on here is amazing to me, honestly. So I'm happy with that. And I got to give you guys different views on it as well. So let me know what you guys think. If you guys are feeling this type of setup, if you want to see more of it, please leave the comments below of what you like, didn't like, what you want to try again next time. And I'll do my best to do that. And I will hit you guys up and see you guys on next week's live.